They just have scandal fatigue, and unless it directly affects them, I don't see this having a big impact, and I don't think President Pence is going to be sworn in next week.
Oh my, you said President Pence. By the way, I think that you should trademark that scandal fatigue if you haven't already, because that really seems to sum up where a lot of people are feeling and landing these days.
It's just exhausting. I just want to be able to go home and sleep in a giant pile of cash. Is that so
or
wrong,
puppies.
Shannon Bream?
Or puppies, either way.
And cash-covered puppies. Shannon Bream, as always, thank you so much. We'll be watching tonight.
Great to see you. See you tonight.
Now, you might recall just 2 weeks before the election, the now infamous Access Hollywood tape came out, and people said Trump was finished, that he should get out of the race. And yet, on November 8th, 2016, he won the presidency. So will this supposed scandal move the needle at all? It is time to go to tonight's panel. We go first to Olympic Media Managing Editor Katie Freitas is here, along with Reason Magazine Editor-in-Chief Catherine Mangue-Ward. And she's an attorney and executive director of the Lawfare Project. Brooke Goldstein is back. Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
So does it matter? Does it matter to voters?
I don't think so. I mean, what's so crazy to me is to think that people who say that it does matter, that consensual sex between adults and a supposed payment to hush that is going to sway the populace. How about Clinton's payment for a dossier that was meant to influence the election? What was that? And I really question, why was this released? It puts Cohen in a really precarious position. As Dershowitz said, it is most likely a violation of attorney-client privilege. He was seeking advice on how to acquire intellectual property rights and also on Ivana court records. But also, it makes him look like a total scumbag. He's secretly recording his clients. As a lawyer, you can only do in very limited circumstances, crime, fraud, or if you're being threatened. And this is certainly not that.
It doesn't rise to that occasion, but if not this, then what? What hurts the president?
I mean, I think this is much more about energizing people who already oppose him, right? And, you know, I think that people did respond strongly to the revelations on those Access Hollywood tapes right before the election. It turned out they didn't respond strongly enough in the right states, in the right numbers to influence the outcome of that election.
But don't you remember that? I mean, don't you remember it was right before the St. Louis debate?
Sure.
And that one subject eclipsed the entire thing, and people assumed that he was going to drop out of the race, and they were scrambling to see what they were going to do with the ticket. And it didn't affect the outcome.
I do think, though, that it's legitimate for people to ask questions about the president's character. I mean, I think that's well established. And, you know, just to get back to the sort of basic human intuition about this, like hearing someone say, all right, we got to spend $150,000 to cover up a story about my infidelity.
No, he said it was not true. He denies it.
Which, of course, he denies it. But I think there is at least a reasonable interpretation of saying, you know, people who are embroiled in this kind of mess, I have questions about their integrity, and I have questions about what else he paid to cover up. And again, I don't know what the truth of the allegations are, but I think people who already are troubled about him are now more troubled.
I think people who, before Bill Clinton, had those concerns. But it's very interesting that you have someone like Lanny Davis, who is not only a Clinton apologist, I mean, he really was the architect of misdirect and making sure that nothing stuck to President Clinton and that he wasn't removed from office during the Lewinsky scandal.
Right, and I think, look, you're completely right. And then, look, the left and Democrats and people who don't like Donald Trump are going to continue to dislike them. This is going to reaffirm their opinion of his character and who he is.
But it gets exhausting hearing them go, well, this is
does,
it. You know, Stormy Daniels, well, this is it. Helsinki, well, this is it.
Right, but Trump voters, I would say, it's one of two things. They either have accepted that this is his character and they don't care because things like the economy matter much more to them than what he may have done 10 years ago, or they consider him the lesser evil of everyone who was in that race to begin with. And so they say, you know what, I don't necessarily like his character, but I'd rather have him than Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders or anyone else.
Isn't it also bizarre, though, that at the same time in Hollywood, for instance, we are seeing people with their careers ruined for like one tweet from 10 years ago, like one bad joke. And in general, the right condemns that, right? Like they say we shouldn't jump all over people for one mistake. And yet there's this sort of argument of like, well, it was a long time ago. Who knows all the details? I think there's a weird sort of,
we have to have a uniform reaction because it's too easy to try and pick people off.
The buying and selling of information by public figures happens all the time. And this shows that McDougal was trying to plant a story that he says was not true to influence the election. So, of course, he is going to try and do everything he can to buy the intellectual property rights of this story, which he has every right to do. I mean, I really don't see this as a big deal at all that says anything about his character.
I don't know if it is salacious. I mean, I don't know if we talk about the threshold being vastly different than it was.
Right.
Oh, in the grand old 80s. The panel's going to hang on because right now we have a news alert. House Freedom Caucus members Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan, they did it. They pulled the trigger. They just introduced articles of impeachment against Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein for failing to turn over text messages involving former FBI lawyer Lisa Page. Meadows also told Fox News that Page's former lover and texting partner Peter Strzok will be recalled to answer more questions under oath about the infamous Steele dossier. He claimed the FBI legal shield. If you remember, during the last public testimony, Congress is only in session for 19 more days. So Republicans are going to have to move fast if they are going to pull off this impeachment. Will Rod Rosenstein face the music, or can he run out the shot clock? What do you think, Brooke?
Okay, so I understood that they're trying to hold him in contempt because, you know, this is basically a reaction to a total frustration by members of Congress who are trying to get information, who say they're being completely stonewalled by an FBI who we're seeing now is politically motivated and tried to undo an American election. And I think that Congress has a very legitimate interest, an oversight interest, and it's not just about the tweets and what tweets are relevant. We're talking about, you know, the FBI informants, who they were. Those names haven't been turned over. I don't think that the House Freedom Caucus is going to be able to pull this off, but it's definitely a statement of frustration. I understand why they're doing it.
So, you know, bottom line, they're not really going to impeach Rosenstein because that has to go to a full House vote. And it would be very easy for Democrats to say this is a political ploy, whether or not you disagree with the timing of the release of certain documents that they have requested. You're just trying to remove him to get rid of Mueller.
It's definitely a little bit old man shakes fist at cloud kind of vibe here. I have to say, yeah, I'm sort of annoyed because it's making me really sympathetic to Congress. As a journalist, when you file a Freedom of Information Act request, you always get this same shtick, like where it's like, well, you know, you didn't ask for exactly that text, or we gave it to you, but we buried it.
Splitting, especially,
a lot of hair splitting.
They're not being forthcoming.
I'm feeling this vibe right now with Congress. I'm feeling like, yeah, I get it. They knew what you were asking for,
exactly.
and they didn't give it to you.
Every journalist feels that pain at some point in their life.
But
Yes.
there is a degree of frustration because when you want the text messages, you want the text messages.
Right.
And they're frustrated because they're like, you know, regardless of what party we're in and how you're trying to CYA right now, you know exactly, to Catherine's point, what we're looking for. And don't tell us that you already gave it to us because it's over there. It's not over here.
Well, right, and it definitely is a statement, I think, of that they're essentially saying we just assume malevolence from the Justice Department now at all times is where this trust level is at. But at the same time, you have the FBI that says, well, these two texts aren't relevant, except we said we gave you one of them before. And so now it's like, are they relevant? Are they not relevant?
Back
What's
and
going
forth
on?
about whether
Yeah.
they had been archived at
Right,
all, right?
exactly.
Like that's always a standard part of this runaround.
And within one text thread, those are the only two that are missing. And everything else surrounding it is there and was conveniently grabbed, but somehow...
You know, my text threads are like that sometimes too, and I definitely deleted those on purpose, is all I'm saying.
Fantastic. Well, we do have much more with the panel. Congressman Meadows and Jordan, they're going to be guests on the Ingram Angle at 10 p.m. Eastern on the Fox News channel. First up, though, are we one step closer to winning the trade war? President Trump and the EU went head-to-head, and today, America came out on top. We'll tell you who blinked and about the new trade deal and what it means for your big fat wallet after the break.
The president, the left, the ongoing hysteria. After their latest attempt at Trump, will liberals ever back down? Diamond and Silk sound off on Dobbs tomorrow.
It's easy to think that all money managers are pretty much the same. But while some push high commission investment products, Fisher Investments avoids them. Some advisors have hidden and layered fees. Fisher Investments never does. And while some advisors are happy to earn commissions from you, whether you do well or not, Fisher Investments fees are structured so we do better when you do better. Maybe that's why most of our clients come from other money managers. Fisher